Those days, it's like if you don't go to college, you're finished. So I did one thing. And because of this, suddenly everybody thought I'm become some kind of an enemy. Then I made a deal with all the teachers.
Also, speaking of schooling and parents and careers, right now, we're in an age where there's so many different offbeat careers coming up. As YouTubers, we get this question all the time. How did you talk to your parents about it? How do we convince our parents about this really new career that we have? I want to ask you, if you had to convince your parents and tell them that this is what you, how did that discussion go? Did that happen where you had to sit them down and tell them that this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
I want to do YouTube now. Like, did that happen with you too?
What?
He's doing YouTube right now. Like, he's into YouTube. That's why.
Well, not everybody can be convinced about everything, okay? Some things are just done. So, just to give you an example, when I passed my 12th standard, at that time it was called PUC. After that, I decided I will educate myself. I don't want to go to college. This is a family where everybody is educated. Not going to college is like sacrilege. At least today, there is a little more flexibility. Those days, it's like if you don't go to college, you're finished. Because now probably if you don't go to college, you may lose your lifestyle, but you won't lose your life. That was a generation, if you don't go to college, you lost your life, you're on the street, that's about it. So they were terrified of this. My father being a physician, he was just freaked about it. He is a very studious man, all his life, first, second, third in everything that he has done. So he couldn't believe this, that I want to educate myself. So I did one thing. And because of this, suddenly everybody thought I'm become some kind of an enemy. And they were not even talking to me properly. I did one thing. I was just to tell you, I was such a big eater. I would eat at least 10 times of what I eat today. But I never was putting on weight or anything because my level of physical activity was such. I could just run up a coconut tree, I was made like that. So I was every day cycling about 50, 60 kilometers, swimming in the Kaveri and going back like this, so eating this. I decided to go to the Mysore University library. Every day when they open at 9, I went, 8 in the evening they close. That entire time I sat there, read all kinds of stuff. From Homer to popular mechanics, to National Geographic, to literature, to geography, this, that, whatever. Whatever came my way, every day for 1 year I read like this, just all kinds of things. But the most important thing for me was, though I was such a huge eater at that time, this 1 year I went without a meal. Morning I ate as much as I could, breakfast at home, and I went there and sat there the entire day without a meal, which was a huge achievement for me, because without food I could stay. This kind of expanded my way of looking at life, but family drama started, my mother started crying. When the next academic year comes, go to college, go to college, go to college. Then I said, if I must go to college, I'll go for literature. My father said, what will you do reading poetry? You must become a doctor. He has seat ready for me in the medical college, everything. I said no. Then they said, okay, at least do engineering. Then I said, see,
please do engineering.
If I say I don't want to be a doctor, if you told me become a veterinary doctor, Ayurvedic doctor, at least a witch doctor, I would look at it. If I say no doctor, you say engineer, I'm not going to listen to this. Your problem is society, your problem is not me. So I just went for literature, and these 3 years, I went there in the beginning and they all had ready-made notes, the teachers, they would read. And everybody writing down. Those days fountain pens, kara 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 kara, it makes noise, it just irritated me. I said, I don't want to listen to this kara kara noise. I gave them a suggestion. If you give that notes wherever you got it, we will photocopy it and give it back to you. We don't have to come, you don't have to come. Then if I'm there, I'll ask 100 questions. So they didn't like it, then I made a deal with all the teachers that they'll give me attendance. That was my only concern. So once a month I went to college just to check if they're keeping their part of the deal.
My life is so similar, yeah.
So I explored the geography of Mysore district in such a way, every village track, every hill that is there, every little bird nest, whatever is there, everything I paid attention, just wandering aimlessly. But today, like when I went for the Rally for Rivers board where all the top experts are there, some questions came up when I just telling them casually, they said, "Sadhguru, how do you know all this?" I said, what was aimless wandering? Where I paid absolute attention to everything, from a worm to an insect to anything and everything I paid attention. Now it's become formidable knowledge. I never intended to learn anything, I just paid attention because it was life. And this is all it takes. We have come here to live. There is no other damn purpose. Those of them who want to go to heaven can go today. Why are they postponing? If it's such a great place, I don't see why you should postpone it, isn't it so? This is very important for the youth. If anybody says there is a better place than this earth, it is a crime. It's because of that we have destroyed so many things here. I like to say that for thousands of years, for the longest period, compared to anything on this planet, this wisdom, this dimension of knowing has lived on without any kind of true organization or a certain kind of leadership or any other kind of organized support. Out of sheer efficacy of what it is, it's just lived on. Time has come in the world where even truth has to be protected. When we talk about ease, we are not talking about a particular geography. This must be clearly understood. We are not talking about East and West as geographical features in the world. Any number of great minds in America have said things of great reverence and admiration for the so-called Eastern wisdom. Thoreau, one of the greatest minds America produced, went out to say, "Every morning I bathe my intellect in this stupendous and cosmogonal knowledge from the East. In comparison, all our modern world and literature is puny and tribal." I think Mark Twain went out to… probably gave out the best compliment to the East. When he visited India for a little over 3 months, he said, anything that can ever be done, either by man or God, has been done in this land. Any number of others, Oppenheimer, Walden, Emerson, any number of people have said many things. Why? Why is it important? Why is it important to preserve and nurture this dimension of life? The fundamental reason why it seems to be so significantly different is because it is not a product of human intellect. It is not deductions that we made out of our intellect. This dimension comes from a profound inner experience where there is no right and wrong, there is no up and down, just seeing things the way they are. And when we say dharma, we are not talking about a religion as modern translators went about interpreting dharma as Hindu dharma or whatever, another religion. Because they came from a mindset that everybody has to belong to some segment of humanity. They come from a mindset where humanity has to be divided one way or the other. Because they come from the surface intelligence of human nature, which we call as intellect. Unfortunately, the modern societies, modern education systems have entirely dedicated themselves to the human intellect, completely ignoring other dimensions of intelligence which definitely exist within us. When you go by the intellect, the nature of the intellect is always to dissect and divide, because intellect is essentially discriminatory in nature. And intellect functions always with a certain identity. If you have no identity, you cannot use your intellect. So with individual identities, either of race, religion, nationality, caste, creed, gender, when you apply your intellect, it'll split the world into many pieces. So the significance of what we are referring to as the spirit of Eastern wisdom is, it does not come from human intellect. It comes from a deeper dimension of intelligence within us. When I say a deeper dimension of intelligence, a simplistic way of looking at it would be, whatever you had for lunch today, if you had a piece of bread, over the afternoon, this bread is being transformed into a human being. You definitely cannot do that with your intellect. There's an intelligence here which is capable of making a banana into a human. You definitely cannot do that with your intellect. A dimension of intelligence which is beyond thought process. Thought or the product of intellect is essentially always functioning from a limited amount of data that we have gathered. Now, what we call as Eastern wisdom is not coming from a limited amount of data that we have gathered either from the books or our life experience, but simply by enhancing our ability to perceive life in ways that the five sense organs cannot function. Why I'm talking about the five sense organs is all the data that you have ever gathered, which rests in so many aspects within you, which is the food for the intellect, comes from the five sense organs. In the very nature of things, sense organs cannot perceive the entirety of anything. If you can see this part of my hand, you cannot see this part of my hand. This is the nature of sense perception. Even if you take a grain of sand, if you see one part of it, you cannot see the other face of it. Sense organs can only perceive in comparison. If there is no comparison, your senses are useless. Because there is darkness, you know what is light. Otherwise, you just would not know what is light. If light was on all the time and there was no darkness, you would not know what is light. Because there is silence, you know what is sound. If there was no silence, you would not have the idea of what is sound. So always in comparison. It is like, let's say you're 6 feet tall. Now, you walk like a tall man, you think like a tall man, you feel like a tall man, you are a tall man. You went to another society where everybody is 8 feet tall. Suddenly you walk like a short man, Think like a short man, feel like a short man, and you are a short man. So what you perceive in comparison is a distortion of reality. It is not reality as it is. So whatever we perceive in comparison is useful for our survival process. But if we want to know the nature of this existence, sense organs are not sufficient instrument. What is light for you is darkness for many other creatures. You ever got into an argument with an owl? If you did, which is light, which is darkness, where would it go? It would be endless or… Who is right, you or the owl? Oh, if you're saying both, either you belong to the diplomatic corps or you have a successful marriage. You have learned to say both for everything. You're right. Well, that is the basis of all the problems on the planet. I'm right and you're wrong. The fact of the matter is, you're perceiving it as it is necessary for your survival. The owl is perceiving it as it is necessary for his survival. If survival is all you're seeking, your five sense organs and intellect are sufficient instruments. But if you want to know the nature of the existence, if you want to know the fundamental laws or dharma which governs life, the way it happens within us and around us, then you need an inner perception or another dimension of intelligence within you. Otherwise, you will only cut the world into pieces. In the name of religions, we have cut the world into… humanity into many pieces because intellectually we have arrived at our own conclusions or deductions, which invariably is bound to divide because intellect is essentially a knife which cuts. It can only dissect. By dissection, you can know certain things. But if you really want to know someone that you love, you don't dissect them, you embrace them. By dissection, you may know the kidney, liver, heart stuff, but you will not know that being in any sense. You will lose it completely. So dissection is the way of the intellect because it is a sharp instrument. It has to cut open everything that's given to it. But the East found another way. Out of profoundness of experience, you can know life. By turning inward, you can know life. When I say turning inward, you must understand that essentially the five sense organs are always outward. You can see what's around you, but you cannot roll your eyeballs inward and scan yourself. You can hear this, but so much activity in this body, you cannot hear. If an ant crawls upon this hand, you can feel it. So much blood flowing, you cannot feel it. Because in the very nature of things, sense organs are outward bound. The moment you dedicate yourself to your intellect, you also get enslaved to the limitations of your five senses. It is in this context, the wisdom of the East is of tremendous significance to the world because it has transcended this slavery to sense perception and learned to perceive life in a completely different way. What is this completely different way? In English language, if you say mind, it is just one word, it is supposed to say everything. In the yogic culture, there are 16 parts to the mind, 16 dimensions of human mind. Now if I go into 16, it would take too much time, so let me compress it into 4. The 4 aspects of the mind are called buddhi, ahankara, manas and chitta. Buddhi means the intellect. Today, modern world is largely run by the intellect. So with this, we can do many things on the outside. We can go on enhancing the comforts and conveniences of life. We've done very well in terms of comforts and conveniences. Never before, never ever before, another generation of humanity ever knew the kind of comforts and conveniences that we have today, but at the same time, we are whining like never before. Because as the comforts and convenience increase on the outside, as there is less to complain about what is happening around you, the emptiness of within echoes within you in a horrible way. When you're fighting for survival, when every day you are struggling to fix small things on the outside, you will not realize this. When outside is well settled, that is when you'll see how hollow life has become. The biggest question in the world you will see in the next few decades is, what the hell are we doing here anyway? Because everything that needs to be fixed on the outside is done, now what? 7.2 billion people on the planet. But right now, gradually it's looming large. Loneliness is one of the biggest problems. Dogs are being tortured to fulfill human loneliness. Because as you dedicate yourself more and more to your intellect, you will naturally become more and more lonely because it keeps on dissecting and cutting life into various pieces for examination, and then you will see you yourself will be split up into many parts after some time, if you go by the intellect, 100%. The next dimension of the mind is referred to as ahankara. Normally people think it means ego. No, it means identity. You're identified with something. The moment you're identified with something, your intellect will work only to protect that identity, no matter what, whichever way you think. Your ideas of which nation you belong to, which race you belong to, which culture you belong to, which religion you belong to, which gender you belong to, the moment you get identified, your intellect will work only to protect that identity. So, it is a certain kind of prejudice. Well, you may say, I'm not prejudiced, I'm very broad-minded. All right, it's a broad prejudice. Because people are willing to live and die for what they're identified with. Because the nature of the intellect is, if you take away the identity, it will not know what to do. It needs a strong identity, a strong sense of who I am. If you ask, who am I? Your intellect will not function. You must know who you are. A strong sense of belief that this is what I am, that is when your intellect will function in a certain way. This is like… intellect is like a sharp knife. Ahankara or the identity is the hand that holds it. All the suffering on the planet. When was the last time that somebody stabbed you? Even though you're living in LA, I'm asking. When was the last time it happened? Never happened. Maybe when you were in school, somebody poked you with a pin at the most, or even that did not happen, they ignored you. Or what I'm saying is, how much suffering for a human being is actually coming from outside? Almost nothing. Rest is all self-help. Because this is a sharp knife given to you. Unsteady hand, every day it's cutting itself. You know, we were we were trekking in Nepal and Tibet region, and I was in a tent. Someone was cutting an apple, and someone else, another person said, "A very sharp knife, be careful." It irritates me because such an obvious thing. You call it a knife only because it's sharp. If the damn thing is not sharp, why will I call it a knife? And if it's a child, yes, A full-grown man, you don't tell him it's a sharp knife. I ignored it and I was working on something. Another 2 minutes, again it is said, it's a very sharp knife, be careful. I said, come on, leave him alone. He's a grown man, leave him alone. He's not handling some super instrument, a knife. He should know how to handle a knife. No, no, Sadhguru, it's a very sharp knife. All right, I get back to my work. 2 minutes later, he cuts his hand. Okay. Now, the problem is just this. You've been given a sharp knife, unsteady hand, every day cutting yourself. You may call it stress, you may call it anxiety, you may call it fear, you may call it misery, you call it what you want. All that's happening is your intellect is working against you. That's all it is. Unless somebody is stabbing you from outside, that's a different issue. We need to deal with that. Rest is all your own intelligence turning against you. You may call it 1,000 different… No, my mother-in-law, my boss, my neighbor, they're not stabbing you, they're only saying what they want to say. It is you who's poking yourself because an unsteady hand, that's all. But this intellect cannot function without a memory bank. So what is called as manas is a silo of memory. There are 8 dimensions of memory. Let's not go into the detail, but you know this much. There is a conscious memory. Today they're recognizing as subconscious memory. You know there is genetic memory. You may not remember how your great-great-great-grandfather looked like, but his nose is sitting on your face. 1,000,000 years ago, how your forefathers were, even today, your body remembers. You may not remember here, but your body remembers every aspect of it. Even the color of the skin, it is remembering, not forgotten. So there is genetic memory, there is evolutionary memory. Like this, there's a profound dimension of memory in the body. There are 1,000,000,000,000 times more memory in your body than in your mind. So this is why this is called as manomaya kosha. This is an entire manas, not in one place. Intellect may be up here, but the manas spreads right through the system. Every cell in the body has a memory of its own, has an intelligence of its own. Now the 4th dimension of intelligence is called chitta. This is a dimension of intelligence which is unsullied by memory. If you touch this dimension, then the memory has no influence on you. Your genetic memory, your evolutionary memory, your conscious memories, unconscious memory, subconscious memory, whatever kinds of memories you have, it has no influence on you. Or in other words, past cannot recycle itself through you. See, right now, you take on this form because of a certain memory, it's a certain software. If you eat, let's say you're a man and you eat a piece of bread, this piece of bread turns into a man. You're a woman and you eat a piece of bread, the same piece of bread turns into a woman. You give it to your dog, it turns into your dog. Very intelligent bread. It is just the memory that you carry. Here there is a memory which transforms everything the way it is. So, this dimension of intelligence, which is called as chitta, which is untouched by any kind of memory, just pure intelligence, is of significance because it's beyond. It is beyond your species, it is beyond your form, it's beyond your gender, it's beyond your culture, it's beyond every kind of influence, which is essentially memory within you. Maybe unconscious, but it is memory playing out in so many ways. As long as memory is playing out, what it means is, in India we say you're in a state of samsara. Samsara means a lot of people today understand as family. Samsara doesn't mean family, samsara means a cyclical life. You are in cycles of life. If you're in cycles or if you're going in circles, what does it mean? That means you're not getting anywhere. That's what it means. A cycle is nice, it gives you good exercise. This is like running on a treadmill. If you're seeking exercise, it's good. But if you want to go somewhere, it's no good. If you put your treadmill out here and keep running on it, morning becomes evening, fall becomes winter, winter becomes summer, everything will happen. Seasons will change, scenery will change, everything will happen. Only thing is you don't go anywhere. This is what samsara means. As long as you're functioning within the first three dimensions of intelligence, you are in a cyclical mode. It is all right to exercise yourself, but it's not good to go somewhere. So if you want to transcend the samsara nature of who you are or the cyclical nature of your existence, then you touch the dimension of intelligence which is referred to as chitta. Why the so-called Eastern wisdom is of great significance, why the dharma of the East is so significant and important is because this comes from chitta. This does not come from buddhi, this does not come from manas, this does not come from ahankara, this comes from chitta. And only that which does not come from your individual identity or individual memory, that can be truly universal. So for this we said, this is Sanatan Dharma. This does not mean Hindu religion. This is a very wrong conception. Sanatan Dharma means the ultimate law of nature. When we say nature, there is physical nature and there is an inner nature. There are two dimensions. For this, accordingly, we made two dimensions of laws. Physical nature is a changing thing. It's always in a process of change and a flux. But the inner nature is a constant process. So we made two dimensions of expression for this dharma called Shrutis and Smritis. One is always to be updated for every generation. Otherwise, two generations will keep on bickering and clashing. You have to update. Another is eternal, it's always there. It's nobody's business to change it because it cannot be changed because the fundamentals of life has not changed. Based on this, an entire wisdom arose as to how to exist within you and how to operate around you. This happened in 1924. There was a bishop in the Orthodox Greek religion where, there's Orthodox Greek segment of Christians. They have a pope of their own in Istanbul. They believe they are the only true Christians. Others are all riffraff. So, he served this particular segment, which is very orthodox and rigid. Being in Istanbul, being on the Silk Route, all kinds of stories of Indian mysticism kept wafting across the Bosphorus. So, he has a longing to go to India and see a real yogi or a mystic. But being a man of cloth, he could not choose where to go and where not to go. After he passed 60 years of age, when he semi-retired, he got an opportunity and went to India and came to southern India. So his desire is to meet a real yogi, not a book yogi, not a studio yogi, but a real one. So somebody directed him and said, go up this hill, there in this kind of place, there will be one yogi. So he went up. Well, he's not made for the mountains, he went huffing and puffing up, and then he found in front of a small cave, a yogi was sitting, eyes closed, totally blissed out. He went there and he has been told that if you see a Indian yogi, you must prostrate. Well, he was not made for that, but he somehow managed, huffed and puffed and sat down. Hearing this commotion, The yogi opened his eyes and smiled. Immediately the bishop looked at him and said, "Can I ask you a question?" Yogi said, "By all means." The bishop asked, "What is life?" You should have asked this question when you were 8, at least when you're 16. 16. But what to do, better late than never. He asked. Then yogi laughed and went into raptures. Oh, life is like the fragrance of jasmine upon gentle spring breeze. The bishop looked at him and said, "Life is like fragrance of jasmine upon gentle spring breeze?" Our teacher told us, life is like a thorn. Once it gets into you, if you sit, it hurts, if you stand, it hurts, if you lie down, it hurts. What is this fragrance of jasmine upon gentle spring breeze? So the yogi smiled and said, "Well, that's his life." So this comes from the fundamental that when a human being clearly, experientially understands that entire experience of human life is created from within, never from outside. Right now as you sit here, do you at least see me? Even if you're not listening to me, I'm saying. Can you use your hand and show where I am? No, you're getting it all wrong. You know, I'm a mystic from South India. Now this light is falling upon me, reflecting, going through your lenses, inverted image in the retina, you know the whole story. Where do you see me right now? Within yourself. Where do you hear me right now? Within yourself. Where have you seen the entire world? Within yourself. Have you ever experienced anything outside of yourself? Right now, someone next to you, if they touch you, you think you're experiencing their hand. No. You're only experiencing the sensations in your hand. In the very nature of things, you cannot experience anything outside of yourself. When the entire experience of life is caused from within you, at least it must happen the way you want it, isn't it? The world will not happen the way you want. At least the experience of living here within you must happen the way you want it. If your experience of life happened just the way you want, how would you keep yourself, blissful or miserable? Please, you must tell me, I'm going to bless you. Blissful or miserable? For yourself, definitely highest level of pleasantness for yourself. What you want for your neighbor may be debatable, but you know what you want for yourself, isn't it? Now, blissfulness or pleasantness of life is not a goal by itself. It is only when you're blissful by your own nature. That means you determine the nature of your experience. No matter what is the situation, you determine the nature of your experience. Or in other words, you have no fear of suffering. Only and only when there is no fear of suffering will you walk full stride in this life. Otherwise, it's always about what will happen to me, what will happen to me. Every step is a half a step. Now, this so-called spirit of Eastern wisdom comes from those beings who walked full stride, who determined the nature of their experience.